Also on Capitol Hill, the House Judiciary Committee had a hearing on hate crimes, hate speech, and the rise of white nationalism. Now, representatives from Facebook and Google were there, but also organizations like the Anti-Defamation League and a Muslim man who lost his daughter and son-in-law in a 2015 shooting in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Now, despite the seriousness of the topic, many questions and responses still fell on party lines. Of course, speaking of the party lines, I have to bring in our 360 Live View panel, our political panel, former Georgia State Representative Dee Dawkins-Haigler and conservative writer and radio host Rob Arnold. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, well, we're going to have a conversation unlike what I think is what happened on Capitol Hill today. First, I got to start off with you, Rob. Rob, was this the reason that the Democrats were holding this? Was this just political posturing, or was there actually good hoping to come out of the conversations that were happening today?
Well, I would say first that pretty much everything they do seems to me to be political posturing in this Congress. And it reminds me a lot of the 110th Congress when Nancy Pelosi rolled in, and they just went after Bush on everything they could possibly. They threw everything at him, including the kitchen sink. What bothers me the most about what we're looking at here is the conflation of white supremacists with white nationalists. They're two completely separate things. The president of, let me see if I can take a note here, please. Kristen Clark earlier today said that it was indistinguishable, a white supremacist and a white nationalist, and that's just simply not true. The only way that would become indistinguishable is if we blur the lines on these two words and make it so. You look at the dictionary definition, right, and it's somebody, let me see again, I'm going to check a note real quick, loyalty and devotion to a country. Now, does that have anything to do with race or supremacists or any kind of supremacy, anything? All shades of all colors of all Americans can be nationalists.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, and we go also on the idea of political posturing, because speaking of that, the GOP decided to bring Candace Owens. The minority got to pick out who they wanted to bring in, and they brought in Candace Owens. So, Dee, I've got to ask you, looking at Candace's credentials, which if you have, why did the GOP pick her to be their representative today?
I think Candace has gotten herself into a tight situation. She has become the pawn of the Republican Party, which is very sad within itself. And to say the political posturing is happening when you're talking about white nationalism is absurd, because nothing was posturing when it came to Mother Emanuel and people being murdered and shot down in a church who were trying to worship. As a matter of fact, one of my dear friends, Senator Clemente Pinckney, was killed during that time. And so this is very real. The person who went into the church said he did it to protect the white race and white nationalism. And so we have to pay real attention to this, because people are dying behind the situation.
Well, that's the question. And so
back to Candace. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I would ask you.
Candace,
did she help? Well, my question is right now, and I understand there's definitely a conversation that needs to happen, but Dee, do you think the setup that it was today, I mean, I want to play for you right now what happened with Ted Lieu. I want to play for this segment because it was interesting on both parts.
I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. Problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
That was later a statement that Candace walked away from. But considering we do need to have a conversation about race in America, that kind of a publicity stunt right there, did that help us actually facilitate an honest conversation that would have solutions at it, or just give a great soundbite that turned out to be memes for social media? Dee.
She is a meme in herself. And so I think what has happened is when Candace comes on and spews this type of rhetoric, it makes everyone, well, it makes the Republicans feel happy that they have a black person carrying their water for them, and it makes black people just cringe all around. Now, I do think that the Republican and Democratic Party need to have varying views, from liberal to conservative, depending on what your ideology is. But you should never play with race, because race is not something that one should play with at any time. And we need to have honest conversations and discourse in this country around race. And just the sheer amount of people who have been the police have been called upon them just because they're black. I mean, this is something serious going on in America that we need to deal with.
Okay, so Dee is bringing up issues that a lot of Democrats, and obviously a lot of people, minorities, do bring up. Rob, today's conversation probably should have been able to dispel that, or at least give them some sort of answers or solutions that could be happening. Yet, did today actually help the GOP in any way kind of dispel that narrative that is being told that they're this party of white nationalists, or to have a different type of opinion of them that is what is being cast on them at this point?
Well, it's really hard to say right now. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference one way or the other in terms of the optics of how Republicans feel here in America. I just keep coming back to the fact that a white nationalist is not a bad person that's out to in any way harm anybody who's not white. A white nationalist is just simply a patriot who happens to be white, which is why I'm saying it really ought to be all shades of all colors of all Americans are supposed to be nationalists. It's advocating, a free political, a sovereign nation. It's advocating free nation is what it like.
But do you understand why? But do you understand why it's gotten some bad terms? Why it definitely has. Whether what the dictionary says. Do you understand why it's become a term that is racially divisive, and it definitely sparks not a positive feeling in people's minds? Do you understand that that's now where we're at?
Well, yeah, because the Democrats are muddying up the word. They're conflating. It's just a conflation. It's very important for us to be real clear here that a white nationalist is not a supremacist, period. And so when people try to make that conflation and try and blur the lines of what we've got here, that dog don't hunt.
Well, I think we can all agree that today did not help the conversation, because obviously none of us are coming out with solutions. But we'll have you both back on, and I'm sure this conversation needs to continue in America, especially on this show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.